Steve? So good morning, everyone. My name is Terrence Hill. I am the current Vice President of Tennessee ITE. I want to welcome everyone to our fall 2025 meeting. It is a joint meeting with Georgia ITE. So we welcome everybody from the state of Georgia. We appreciate you all making the trip up here. We got a lot to pack in for today, and so I'm going to take care of a few housekeeping items real quick. So restrooms are out the door to your left, down a little hallway. Make sure that you sign in. There's a QR code on the rotator, also on the tables out there for registration. That's how you get the ADHs. So if you don't sign in, you won't get them. Just make sure you do that sometime today. And then we will have tickets for the aquarium, so feel free to go at any time. During lunch, I know we're going to have a busy for TSITE, so Georgia, you're welcome to kind of browse through the aquarium at that time. But we'll have tickets before lunch to provide you all. And make sure you turn your name tags in at the end of today or whenever you leave. It'll help our secretary a lot. And then want to put out a special thank you to Quality Counts. Matt Gilman from Atlanta and Jay Moon from Tennessee. They provided our coffee, and they also sponsored our snacks for today. So I really appreciate you guys doing that for us. And so, like I said, I am the current Vice President for TSITE. I want to welcome Chris Kirby, our Southern District President, who wants to say a few words for us.
Hey everybody, it's great to see some familiar faces in my home section of Tennessee and also Georgia as well. Did want to say a few words. My term is coming to an end here in late November, the 23rd. It's been a great year, really good year in Southern District. And wanted to thank the Georgia and Tennessee sections for all the hard work that you guys do. It's really such a pleasure. It makes all of the executive committee at the Southern District level jobs easier with all that you guys do. So a big thank you for all that. Moving ahead, just wanted to let you know that Mark Herman will be taking over out of Virginia section next year as president. So look forward to his term. And did want to let you know we have a final executive board meeting on the 23rd. So we'll have the ability to vote on things. So if you do have any questions, something you'd like to bring up to the executive board for vote, or just want to be more involved at the Southern District level, we're like a big happy family, as you can attest to. So with that, you can get with me. I'll be here all day, and we can talk. And I'll get you plugged in or answer some questions. And other than that, welcome to the great city of Chattanooga. Hope you'll stick around and enjoy all it has to offer, and appreciate your time. Let me speak here. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Chris. And next we have Christy John, the current president of Georgia ITE.
All right, thank you, Terrence. And welcome everyone to TSITE and Georgia ITE Technical Exchange. My name is Christy John at Ellis, and current president of Georgia ITE. But I just want to have a big thank you to Terrence and Tyler, our Georgia side, and all of you who helped with the structuring this meeting. I just want to, whoever is contributed to this event, can you just maybe stand so that can you be recognized? Tyler, and Terrence, and you have a good job. Thank you. No, thank you for Chattanooga for hosting it. The drive was beautiful. I was coming up from Atlanta. My Bill Wilson, our secretary, drove, so I was able to take some photos of beautiful fall colors. So thank you, and I look forward to looking at the aquarium as well. So that's all I want to do. Thank you all, and if you want to get more involved in ITE, please do. I'll be here. I'll be sticking around until the program. So just talk to me, let me know if you're interested. And thank you, and enjoy the program. Thank you.
All right, we're going to kind of do things a little differently for this meeting. So a lot of the speakers that we have, we're going to kind of split up who's going to introduce them. So I'll introduce the, Tennessee speakers, and Joe Gillis up here will also introduce the Georgia speakers. So you see us kind of switching back and forth, that's the reason why. So our first presenter is Mr. Ellis Smith. Ellis Smith is Director of the Intergovernmental and External Affairs for the City of Chattanooga. He was appointed in April 2021 when Mayor Tim Kelly took office. During his tenure, Ellis has managed a diverse portfolio that has included advancing the mayor's agenda for communications and marketing, technology, modernization, transportation, economic development, and other special projects. Prior to government, he served on Mayor Kelly's successful mayoral campaign in various roles, including policy, fundraising, and communications. In the private sector, he led several media organizations, including Chattanooga-based Freight Waves, the Hawkeye newspaper in Burlington, Iowa, and led digital transformation at the Chattanooga Times Free Press. Most recently, he has aided Mayor Kelly's efforts to modernize the city's brand for the first time in history and led efforts to bring back passenger rail to Chattanooga. He and his wife have three young daughters and live on the south side. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ellis Smith.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome everybody, especially welcome to the folks from the great state of Georgia. I was born in Atlanta, and glad to have you here. One thing you'll notice is that the commute times are a little less here, so that's one of the reasons that's contributed to me sticking around for a few years. Again, I'm Ellis Smith, Director of Intergovernmental and External Affairs here at the City of Chattanooga, and on behalf of Mayor Kelly, who couldn't be in person, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the Institute of Transportation Engineers, as you pointed out, to the beautiful city of Chattanooga, especially this time of year. Well, actually, a couple more weeks and hotels will be booked with what I discovered is an entire class of tourists called the Leaf Peeper. So you can take that, they travel the country, they follow the leaves, Chattanooga is a node in that network. I'm as you heard, lucky enough to work with a lot of engineers, including some here on projects, which I thought I'd tell a quick story to illustrate that. Some of you may have heard this story before. A man in a hot air balloon realized he was lost. He reduced altitude and spotted a woman below. He descended a bit more and shouted, "Excuse me, can you help me? I promised a friend I would meet him an hour ago, but I don't know where I am." The woman below replied, "You're in a hot air balloon hovering approximately 30 feet above the ground. You're between 59 and 60 degrees north latitude, between 107 and 108 degrees west longitude. You must be an engineer," said the balloonist. "I am," replied the woman. "How did you know?" "Well," answered the balloonist, everything you told me is technically correct, but I have no idea what to make of your information, and the fact is I'm still lost. Frankly, you've not been much help at all. If anything, you've delayed my trip." The woman below responded, "You must be in management." "I am," replied the balloonist, "but how did you know?" "Well," said the woman, "you don't know where you are or where you're going. You have risen to where you are due to a large quantity of hot air. You made a promise which you've no idea how to keep, and you expect people beneath you to solve your problems. The fact is you were in exactly the same position you were in before we met, but now somehow it's my fault." We've had a number of great engineering wins here in Chattanooga, and maybe some wins in progress. We're in the process of rebuilding two bridges, Walnut and Wilcox bridges, if you're interested in taking a look. Certainly, if you drive across Wilcox Bridge, you'll quickly detect why we're rebuilding it. We redesigned the road a few blocks from here called Fraser Avenue, which is pretty neat. If you get free time, you should walk down it. And we're building a new stadium complex, for those of you who came in from Nashville, on what was once, actually for about 20 years, was a worn-out brownfield. I always like to remind people we couldn't figure out a use for that land for 2 decades, except for the music video Truck Yeah. For those of you who like country music, they needed an apocalyptic wasteland, so Chattanooga was on their short list. We're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into retrofitting the Moccasin Bend sewage treatment plant to produce gas we can use to power the plant itself, rather than the mild stench that you might detect if the wind changes directions today. We're rebuilding Broad Street right outside here into sort of a Barcelona-like boulevard is what we're going for there, as well as reconstruction of the riverfront just on the other side of the aquarium, just over this way. We're working on a massive grade separation on Hamill Road, one of the worst railroad intersections in Tennessee and certainly in the United States of America. Actually was on FRA's list of worst intersections in one of their ports, so we were glad that they decided to fund it. And of course, those of you who have some friends from TDOT here, I think they know that they will be working on the highways surrounding Chattanooga long after my children have graduated from college. Or at least until my 8-year-old gets her master's in engineering, which I assume is a real degree. I don't actually know. I'm a liberal arts major. Outside of fixing places that cars go, we're the lead agency on a 4-city project, as you mentioned, to bring back passenger rail to Chattanooga. You know, you probably passed or have heard of the Chattanooga choo-choo. There is no choo-choo. It's just us, just cars. But the rails are there, and we think that the trains moving between Atlanta, Memphis, Chattanooga, Atlanta, Nashville, every day we could accommodate some passenger trains if we build some siding and double track. So that's what we're working on there. I have a whole 20-minute spiel on that. I'll spare you, but I can answer questions later. And while Mayor Kelly ran on the promise of maintaining infrastructure and doubled the annual paving budget to $10 million, we still have about a $270 million backlog on paving alone. So in short, Chattanooga is a great place to be an engineer. If you like to stay busy, I'll leave cards if anybody's interested in sticking around. But I want to talk a little bit about another ambitious project, which is a lot less about transportation and more about quality of life. You may have heard that Chattanooga has officially been named a national park city in America, which is a tremendous honor. This is an international designation. We're actually the first in North America. And it's awarded from the UK-based National Park City Foundation. Cities that are managed like parks with a focus on green space, clean air, and connecting people with nature. When I mentioned Fraser Avenue earlier, a lot of that was how do we make that more multimodal? People want to bike, people want to walk. That helps our storefronts, that helps our businesses do more business when someone is walking and looking in the window versus going by at 45 miles an hour. So for the city and its residents, this designation means a couple of things. The first, identity and competitive advantage. And most of you are in business, you'll understand this. The mayor views the outdoors as Chattanooga's competitive advantage, which other cities cannot copy. I always say that lots of cities have beautiful aquariums like the one we're in, great manufacturing centers like the Volkswagen plant, and some even have pretty good mayors. But what they can't copy are our rivers, our lakes, our streams, our mountains, right? That is a competitive advantage. We see this designation as core to our identity and our story of revitalization, which is another story. It serves as a way for citizens to think of themselves as living in a city and a park rather than a city with some parks in it. The second piece of that is health and community. This designation is viewed as sending a message that Chattanoogan take our outdoor lifestyle seriously, which some of you who are here or know people who are here who have moved here for the climbing or moved here because they like going biking or running up Raccoon Mountain, you'll understand why that's important to us. And then policy and preservation. Becoming a national park city means embracing all aspects of outdoor life. That means preserving forests and all the beautiful things that make it the scenic city. Mayor believes this designation will help us execute our Parks and Outdoors plan, which I'll talk about just a little bit here in a second. And then finally, economic impact. And there's a blurb here. I'm going to skip ahead, but I'm just going to say I don't think there's one of us who doesn't like sitting next to a beautiful park or a green space, having a beverage, maybe even an adult beverage, and enjoying a cool breeze in the shade, right? And businesses are all too happy to help produce that. So when I talk about the Parks and Outdoors plan, what does that mean? Well, we're thinking about it in terms of fix, build, connect, and preserve. Fix, we've got 19 existing parks. We've got to maintain them. And so, we came in, there was some deferred maintenance. People don't believe you're going to do a new thing well if you can't do well with what you've already been given. So that was a big part of it. That's underway. We also want to build 11 new parks and 16 miles of greenway. The city core has expanded a lot since the 1900s when we last had a park plan. And there's a lot of new folks who are not near a park, so we've got to address that. And then finally, we're working to preserve 560 acres of city land. That's a lot. That's a huge amount. For comparison purposes, the U.S. Pipe Wheel and Foundry, where I mentioned, I think, again, many of you saw, we're building a ball field when you came in. That's 120 acres. So imagine 4 of those, or 5, really. If we're successful, I think we will be, over the next couple of decades, it'll increase from 32%, that's today, to 55%, the number of Chattanoogans who can walk to a park from their house, which is a huge quality of life win. And that's what we are really all about here. So again, thank you for being here. Welcome to Chattanooga. If you're from Georgia, you can have the bottled water, but no other water, that's it. We're pretty firm on that. And I'll take any questions that anybody has. If not, thanks a lot.
All right, give me a second to transition to our first speaker. And I also saw my team's message come up, so give me 1 second to get out of that. Okay. So our first speaker is Mr. Justin Fields. He was going to co-present with Michael O'Donnell, and unfortunately, Michael was not able to make it this morning. But Justin Eckel, I'm sorry, I said the wrong name. Justin Eckel is the Civil Engineering Director for STV in Tennessee. He has more than 22 years of experience in project management and operations management for roadway design, bridge design, traffic engineering, right-of-way acquisition, and construction engineering and inspection for traditional and alternative delivery projects. He holds a bachelor's of science degree in civil engineering from Tennessee Tech University and a master of science degree in civil engineering from Vanderbilt University. He is a registered professional engineer in 13 states, including Tennessee and the state of Georgia. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Justin Eckel.
Good morning. Good morning. I think Terrence is playing a joke on me here, having me follow Ellis's great presentation with a discussion of traffic data and roadway widening and saying my name wrong. So we're going well here. Appreciate being here today to introduce the work we've been doing on our Moccasin Bend widening project. This is going to be a great project for the region and a much needed infrastructure improvement once complete. Okay, so our agenda today, first going to go through some background on the corridor as a whole and introduce the project limits that we have. Then going to go through the work that our team has done over the last year and a half on the traffic, design, and environmental side. So this is our project location. This is the I-24 Moccasin Bend project. It extends from I-59 in Georgia in Dade County to US 27 near downtown. These limits were needed to provide logical termini for the NEPA document, but TDOT would only be funding the right-of-way and construction for the Tennessee portion. GDOT has been an excellent partner to our team throughout the project and will continue to be involved as the project evolves. So a little bit of the timeline. This project was first identified in the I-24 multimodal corridor plan as a capacity improvement location. That study was completed in 2014. Fast forward to 2017, the IMPROVE Act kind of kicked into gear the planning process for the project, and that culminated in the technical report in 2018. And that report recommended adding a lane and identified this as a critical corridor to the region. Fast forward again, 2023, the Transportation Modernization Act passes and really kicked into gear the design phase, which culminated or started with being included in the 10-year plan in 2024 with right-of-way and construction funding in 2024, and it was also in the update in 2025. So zooming out a little bit, the I-24 corridor as a whole, TDOT has made a lot of investments throughout this region and is going to make investments in this, and the Moccasin Bend project is just one of those. The map you see here, the Moccasin Bend project encompasses locations 1, 2, and 3 on that map. Location 4 is the Broad and Market Interchange project that was recently completed. Location 9 is the Germantown Belvoir Bridge Replacement CMGC that was completed back in 2021, and that project kind of set the stage to continue the I-24 I-75 interchange which is Project 11. That was, as most of you know, was split into two projects, with Phase 1 completed in 21 and Phase 2 anticipated next summer. So this is data that the region reports to headquarters each quarter. This is taken from RIDIS, and it's the top interstate bottlenecks within the region. This is Q1 of 2025. The region does flag logical influences like construction work zones and things like that to not skew the data going to headquarters. The rankings do shuffle somewhat. As you can see there, the trailing three quarters are the columns on the right. But the I-24 westbound US 27 split is typically at or near the top. As you can see there, it's number one, 3 of the last 4 quarters. And also they're highlighted. The Moccasin Bend project includes 3 of the top 10 Region 2 bottlenecks. All right, so room full of traffic engineers. I sure love seeing this. As the non-traffic engineer, I'll try to explain it as best I can. So this is the eastbound direction first. This is the I-24 interchange at I-75. This was the number 2 Region 2 bottleneck in 2024. I guess in the Q diagram, for those that may not know, the center is January 1st. The outer ring, if you will, would be December 31st. And again, this is 2024, if I didn't say that. And as you can see, you see pretty heavy queuing from 8 to 9. The colors there, if you can see that scale at the bottom, it's kind of hard to read. They all kind of look black in a way, but it's they're greens and purples. But you see heavy queuing from 8 to 9, and then a little bit of lightning, and then it's kind of heavy pretty much all afternoon from 1 to 7 p.m. So for reference, from US 27 to I-75 is about 6 miles. So when you see the purple in there, it's pretty much all of downtown is queued. So moving to the westbound, this was the number 4 bottleneck in Region 2. This is the I-24 westbound at the state line. These queues, as you can tell, are more sporadic, which leads to the kind of the conclusion that these are more incident related, even though you do have quite a bit of density in that area. So this is a video of the, let's see if this works. Yeah, these are the average eastbound segment speeds for 2024. It's kind of hard to see, but in the upper left-hand corner, it's the time's ticking, and it's 5-minute intervals. As this run, you'll see Moccasin Bend generally stays in the green, which is 55 miles per hour and above. But you do see some slowdowns during your peaks, but when it goes to yellow and orange. But generally speaking, it stays in the greens. You can also see the influence of the I-75 work zone there on the east end as we go. Let's see where we at now. 11 a.m. So you'll start seeing pick up here. 2 o'clock for those that can't see. And then you start seeing more red all through downtown for most of the afternoon, and then it'll eventually dip as you get closer to 7 p.m. We're at about 6 p.m. now for those that can't see, and then you start to see it lighten up. It was interesting to me that the ridge cut there pretty much stays yellow all day, at least. At best, it's yellow. Even at 10 p.m., it was still yellow and orange. So that was kind of interesting to me that you slow down through the ridge cut. All right, so this is a still, we'll show the video in a second. This is the worst case for the westbound segment, and shows the impact of that I-24 westbound and US 27 southbound merge that anybody that has driven to Nashville has experienced. As you can see, this is the worst. You see that dark red there at where State Route 29, US 27 come together and extending to the west. So we'll start this video again. This is 2024 data, 5-minute increments. And again, a lot of green at night, as you would expect. It didn't start. All right, now it started. All right. And as you'll see, the Moccasin Bend project stays green for most of the day, except for rush hour. So expected there. Let this catch up. About 5 a.m. Kind of your AM rush. Now we're at about noon. And then you really start to see downtown at about 1, 2 o'clock, really start to back up towards I-75. And again, you'll see the Moccasin Bend project, you'll have some oranges there through the bend, but downtown's pretty slow for most of the day, or most of the afternoon, I should say. And then it'll ease up, as you would expect, at about 7 or 8 o'clock, 6 or 7 in the afternoon. All right, this is somewhat duplicative of the video that you just saw. This is the average westbound speeds for Q1 of 2025, and the figure goes from east to west from the bottom of the page. Belvoir's at the bottom. The US 27, I-24 split is at the top. It's labeled US 41, that's just because it goes under. And this kind of reinforces what you just saw, is that your slowdowns are 2 p.m. To 7 p.m. with the worst case from US 27 to Market and Rossville to 4th Avenue. All right, so kind of moving back with the groundwork laid on the kind of the corridor as a whole. For the Moccasin Bend project, as I said before, the technical report kind of wrapped up that planning phase. Our team is currently in the environmental and design phases of the project. So the first task we completed was the safety and traffic operations analysis report. That report examined the traffic conditions along with the potential impacts and operational benefits that the widening would deliver. The findings of that report generally acceptable levels of service, except for the merge and weave areas, which is pretty common. It also, interestingly enough, something that's different from the technical report, recommended a continuous eastbound auxiliary lane from US 41 to Browns Ferry, and you'll see that on this graph. This is from the SOAR. This is your eastbound PM peak level of service. Level of service is a D, which not uncommon for an interstate, right? Average speeds were, for those that can't read all those numbers, is between 55 and 65 miles per hour between I-59 and US 41. Things do worsen as you get into the bend between US 41 and Browns Ferry. The speeds dip to about 35 miles per hour, where talked about before, between US 41 and Browns Ferry, where that auxiliary lane would be useful. But after Browns Ferry, it picks up and you get back above 50 to 60 miles per hour. An added benefit that doesn't necessarily show up in this data is the proposed project would add full width outside shoulders, which is good for incident management, doesn't block those lanes. So that's kind of a benefit that's not necessarily in the numbers. All right, so looking at the westbound, again, level of service D from I-59 to Browns Ferry, speeds 58 and above, and again, same thing kind of here. You see those Fs kind of creep back in the westbound direction, also in the bend with the speeds around 45 and up. The last piece of the SOAR was the crash analysis. Crash analysis was done for 2021 to 2023. In total, there were 828 crashes with 8 fatalities. There were around a dozen or so segments along the corridor that were analyzed. In the eastbound direction, those segment crash rates were around 1.2 to 6.6, with the high located as you approach the Georgia 299 interchange. In the westbound direction, we were around 1.1 to 4.2, and that high was at the US 27 I-24 merge. All right, so important part of your NEPA document is identifying your purpose and need. The need is the identified problem. I think we've talked a lot about the problems in the corridor, and the purpose are the objectives to address that need. For the Moccasin Bend widening project, the needs are improving that the corridor is operating at or near capacity, as we've seen here. Something I haven't talked about yet is that there are several poor or fair bridges that need to be replaced. So with the need established, the purpose of the project is to reduce congestion, improve traffic operations, and replace those deficient bridges. Since we are still in the NEPA phase, there are 2 alternatives being considered, the no build and the build alternative. The no build would not introduce a construction project to increase capacity. It would primarily be focused on maintaining the existing condition. Some upgrades are possible if it's due to an adjacent project or if it's already programmed, but generally speaking, it's maintenance only. The build alternative, as we said, would widen from 4 to 6 lanes, 3 each direction. We would construct new guardrail, barrier wall, and retaining walls as needed, and replace those 14 bridges. This is graphically kind of what I just said with the typical sections. You see on the left, there's a grass median typical section, and on the right, a median barrier section. The Moccasin Bend project is divided into 3 segments. Segment 1 is the segment in Georgia. Segment 2 is the state line to Browns Ferry Road, and segment 3 is Browns Ferry to US 27. The design primarily follows the existing alignment. We anticipate minimal to no right-of-way acquisition. The projects would be constructed in reverse order. So segment 3 has been prioritized with construction funding in FY27. Segment 2 would come online by TDOT as funding allows, and then segment 3 would be constructed by GDOT as their work program allows sometime in the future. All right, this should look familiar for those of y'all that drove in from Nashville. This is in segment 2 near the Georgia state line. As you've seen, great difference there between the 2 sides. We'll be widening to the median side, constructing a retaining wall, median barrier there on the eastbound side to help form that ditch for drainage purposes in the median. And this is kind of the ORD model of that. You can see the ditch and the proposed fill and the barrier wall there. Moving to segment 3, this is kind of a good representation of some of the challenges of segment 3. The Tennessee River is on the left. You've got rail lines and the ridge on the right. You also see a pretty drastic grade difference between the 2 directions of travel. So again, putting that median barrier in the median to allow for the center widening. We're having to put a retaining wall on the outside adjacent to the river because we're not allowed to fill in the Tennessee River. So that's going to be another unique element to the design. And then this is, again, what this kind of looks like in ORD. You can see the retaining wall on the left and the median barrier there on the right. All right, this is that merge point that we've talked about so much with the southbound US 27 and I-24 westbound coming together. Again, for those of us that drive to Nashville, this is where it always backs up. So what this project will do is eliminate that merge point, and the ramp will become that third through lane and hopefully eliminate the issues there that propagate east. All right, so I was going to talk about bridges. So the project includes 14 bridges. 12 of those are in Tennessee, 2 in Georgia at these locations. A major impact on our line and grade design was the substandard vertical clearances underneath these crossing streets. A lot of those were under 14 feet. Our first pass through the profile was to raise to 16.5 at all those crossings. That became apparent pretty early that we weren't going to be able to do that, just logistically and just cost and traffic phasing just wasn't going to work. So we've backed down, and basically what we're going to do now is provide 15 feet at Cummings Road and Kelly's Ferry Road, and go to 16.5 at Browns Ferry and US 41 because those are your interchange locations. The CSX crossing there in Georgia is also under standard vertical clearance. It's a little under 22 feet, and that profile is being raised as well to achieve that 23 feet that we need for the railroad. This is one profile. This is Cummings Road. Vertical clearance here existing is 13 feet 10 inches. So we're having to raise the grade around 4 feet to get that 15 feet plus our anticipated superstructure. All right, the last task that we've really spent probably most of our time on in the last 18 months is the NEPA document. Our team is undertaking a number of technical studies to assess the potential impacts and determine the level of environmental documentation that we'll need. For our project, we're having to do an environmental assessment, EA. I'm sure everybody in this room knows that. But most of the field work is done. The noise analysis noise field work is the last bit of field work we have to do. But it should be done in the next few months. And, we have the tech studies underway. Once those are done, we will compile those and they'll go into the EA that will eventually go to the agencies for hopefully approval. We'll see. We feel good about it. So a high-level view of our schedule. Project was initiated early in 2024 with the permit agencies. We combined the design and NEPA public meetings back in July. Had 2 of those here in Chattanooga. We also had our line and grade field review in July. Our EA is ongoing. Look to have that submitted in early 2026 at this point. And our public meetings, we're looking at March or April for those. Those are dependent on the EA. And so, assuming there's no issues, we're looking to have our approved EA and FONSI in May or June. We don't anticipate any problems, but those are kind of our anticipated dates for now. And like I said before, TDOT has funded construction in FY27 and also funded right-of-way in 2026. Last thing, project website, TDOT's maintaining a lot of information here. All the background information is posted there. Also our project schedule, our public involvement documentation is all there, and also roll plots of the design as it currently sits. And that concludes the presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions. Yes.
Yeah, so for the 3 years that you looked at the crashes, what are the most predominant or common crash types, and how will the project address some of these concerns?
That's a good question. I'll just say I'm not the traffic engineer, so I didn't do the report. I think they were primarily at the merge points. The Georgia 299, for those that have driven from Nashville, that 299 interchange, those acceleration lanes are short, and I think the decels are short too, and it's mostly in those merge areas. So my guess is they're side swipes would be my guess, but I'm not 100% sure.
Excuse me. How's the upcoming Pell study going to affect your project?
Knew we'd get that. I'm sure there'll be some coordination. That hasn't happened yet. I haven't been given an indication that our project is going to wait on that. So I think there's going to be coordination, but they're kind of independent. I think the goal of our project is going to be to not box out anything that the Pell recommends. At least that's the impression I've been given talking to Mike. Yeah.
While the tie-in at the 27 entrance ramp probably makes sense from a logical turn-back perspective, from a merge weave perspective on westbound, did the project consider the lane drop in the weave over for specifically freight traffic due to the westbound lane drop at 27 north? Because when you're coming through there from I-75, again, anecdotally, I don't have the data, that seems to be a much more concerning area and movement than the actual entrance and merge point from 27 southbound. And this doesn't appear to necessarily address that.
Yeah. The northbound.
So when you're coming west down from the ridge cut, you got three lanes, three travel lanes on 24 westbound.
Yeah.
Then you add the fourth one from the Rossville Boulevard, and then.
Okay, so you're all the way in downtown. I'm sorry, I was thinking of our project. Okay, I'm sorry.
Once you come over Market Street westbound, you got the split.
Yeah.
You have two dedicated westbound lanes, so you force one of those westbound I-24 lanes, two of them actually, to drop.
Yeah.
27 northbound. And from a freight perspective, where you're prohibiting truck traffic in that left lane coming down from the ridge cut, then you're forcing all those trucks to weave over.
Yeah.
Specifically trucks is what anecdotally it looks like to drive it. But how does this work with that? Because, again, the tie-in with a free flow lane from 27 southbound is logical.
Yeah.
But was there any consideration for carrying three continuous 24 westbound lanes all the way through that interchange?
Yeah, I think I'll give the answer I think Mike would give is that would be beyond the scope of this project. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, downtown, this doesn't fix downtown. I think, yeah, there are multiple issues. The issue we have is one, and yes, those other splits as you head west before the high bridge, they all stack, right? So I agree, and I would imagine that would be something that the Pell would look at, widening, or I don't know what the Pell's going to determine, but that would probably be a task undertaken by the Pell, I would say. Not to speak for TDOT, but that's my guess. Kurt's nodding his head, so I think he agrees. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Justin Eckel. Make sure I got that right. So, Joe, do you want to come up and introduce our next speaker?
Thanks, Terrence. It's a pleasure to be here in Tennessee. I grew up 30 miles from here in Cleveland. I'm Joe Gillis. I work for Arcadis, and I'm also an active member of the Georgia section. And it's my pleasure to be introducing all our Georgia-based speakers today here at the conference. Our first speaker, Sam Harris. He gave me a bio, but there is so much more you can say about Sam. But Sam's going to be talking about the GDOT ARC Joint Use Data Use Program. And as you're going to learn, this is a very beneficial thing for the locals in Georgia. I look forward to hearing about that here in Tennessee. You'll get to learn more what's going on in Georgia with that. But Sam is the state traffic engineer for GDOT, and he leads a lot of programs that are very important. Highway safety, traffic operations, connected autonomous vehicles, ITS, hero incident response and data innovation for the state. He's a PE in Georgia, went to Georgia Tech, bachelor and master's in civil and transportation. And something he didn't put on here I think is very important. He was the ITE Young Member of the Year. Let's Let's welcome Sam up here.
All right, morning, y'all. So I'm here to talk about data, a data program in general. Some of you have heard about it, but I think most of you haven't. So I'm excited for that because one of the things that I love when I do my job is data, because it helps inform us on what decisions we should make. And it also allows us to reaffirm our decisions that we're trying to make as well. So I have takeaways. We're going to talk about transportation data. Why is it important? This may not be a hard crowd to sell that to, so that should be pretty easy. Applications that are available to help justify decisions. So I'm going to show you what we're doing, and these are many applications I know are available in many other states as well, including Tennessee. And then talk about the program and how we actually make this free for all users. So I like starting with interaction and a little bit of fun and mix it up a little bit. So can someone tell me this instance, what's happening right here? Sports fans. Seahawks, yeah, they're about to lose, yeah. Yeah, if you remember this was back in 2015 in the Super Bowl. Pete Carroll, the coach of the Seahawks, was on the 1 yard line, 29 seconds left to go, can win the game. And he has a guy over there called Marshawn Lynch, who is he is the beast. That's his nickname. And so do you run it or do you pass it in that scenario? Well, if you're a sports fan, you'll know that data informs a lot of decisions that coaches are making, even can go against what their gut will tell them to do. And so in this instance, I guess it was Carroll, he took the blame for it at least, they decided to pass it, and it was intercepted, and they lost the game. Let's go to another example. This one may be a little bit more difficult for our baseball fans. Anyone remember this one? No? Not as many baseball fans? Okay, that's okay. This is the 2020 World Series, so there's a lot going on in the world at this time, but they were actually still playing baseball that year. That's Blake Snell. He plays for the Tampa Bay Rays. And this is Game 6. Rays trying to win that championship finally. He is about 70 pitches in, so for non-baseball fans, that's not a lot, especially getting deep into the game. He has about 9 strikeouts, only allowed 2 hits. Coach walks out there and actually pulls him from the game. And he was very open about it. He said the analytics said, third time around in the rotation, Blake Snell gets hit hard. So I'm going to take him out of the game. But really, face value, he's having a dominant game. In Game 6 of the World Series, there's only 7 guys, so just in case baseball fans. So there's this is the end of the line. But what I'm really trying to get at here, and what I'm trying to prove, is that we have so much data available to us nowadays. And you'll see plenty of it when I go through the presentation today. And it allows us as engineers, planners, etc., to be able to use that data, capitalize on it, and make decisions. But it also shouldn't be the end-all, be-all. We all have engineering judgment, right? We all have the schooling, the experience, etc. We can use and capitalize on that data, but also rely on what your engineering judgment is telling you as well. All right, so let's kick into it. Enough of the sports analogies and whatnot. So why does it matter? Again, it's not going to be a hard sell to you guys, but why does transportation data matter? Well, depending on what area you're focusing in on, you may be looking at traffic flow. You may be looking at enhancing safety. Planning and maintenance is another item. Looking at emergency response and management. Looking at policy development, especially if you're on the local agency DOT side. Customer service experience, economic impact, and that resource allocation and budgeting is really big on that as well. So anyone raise their hand who's making decisions related to projects and managing your team and not using data? Yeah, you shouldn't. You should have at least some information, right? But again, very important, that we're using data to inform decisions. All right. So this is the History Channel portion of my presentation. I try to do as much digging as I can, but I know someone in the audience is going to know more than me on this, but I'm going to go over a loose timeline here. We used to collect everything manually, all the data manually. I mean, heck, I know when I started out with the department, I was out on the side of the road with a JMAR board or with a clipboard, pushing buttons, writing tally marks, collecting data for a couple of days. I was in signal timing then, so then going back, putting it into a program, working on it, going back out into the field, letting it run, staying there and collect more data. So a lot of manual collection. Then you get into introducing, traffic studies and surveys, introducing traffic control systems, 1920 and onward, but really emergence of that computerized traffic management in 1960s and onward, and then getting into the GIS portions. Again, technology is evolving, allowing us to better collect data, better information. 1990s, believe it or not, really telematic and information was really becoming available then. Open road initiatives happening, then you had big data, advanced analytics start coming on the scene, 2010s onward. Then a lot of conversation about smart cities, some using it as a buzzword, and some others actually doing something with it. And then you get into the connected autonomous vehicles, and to move on, there's a lot here, but my main point is that, as we advance, we're advancing in terms of our data collection, but we're also advancing in how we're using that data to make those decisions. All right, types of transportation data. Just want to make sure everyone's on the same page, everyone understands the type of data we're going to be talking about today, but you have probe data, so that's could be location-based services coming from your cell phone, coming from vehicles. That really gets into the telematics data as well. We have volume estimation data. That's probably one of the staples. Volume data is, along with travel time and along with speed, are probably going to be your main staples when it comes to the data that you're using nowadays, or that you have been using over the past several years. OD data is really big as well. That's making sure we understand where people are going and where they're ending up. And then trip data, going back to the travel time information and that connected data as well. But really the advancements that we are seeing is in that telematic or phone-based type of data. I guarantee you everyone has a cell phone. Raise your hand if you don't. Yeah? So everyone has it. You likely, I can't guarantee you everyone's going to have this, but you likely are going to have an insurance app on your phone. And if you do, you're getting a rate discount, or at least you hopefully are. If you're not, you're a bad driver, and that's you got other things going on. But nonetheless, that insurance provider is taking that data, turning it around, and likely selling it off. One of the main data sets I'll go over today, actually a lot of that data comes from Allstate. So you're getting a good discount, good, but also they're getting their money's worth out of it as well. Google, using Maps, using Apple Maps, that's other data sources that come out of that. So that information is key, in what we use day to day, going back to that travel time and volume. But also when you look at the vehicles themselves, vehicles have gotten a lot smarter over the years, to the point now where I feel like if you get a fender bender, it's a total. You totaled your vehicle, you got to get a brand new vehicle because the components are just so expensive on vehicles nowadays. Well, there's a computer on your vehicle, most likely, if you have a newer vehicle. And that computer is hooked up to sensors, could be LiDAR, could be camera, whatever the case may be, but it all is collecting data as well. GM, Ford, all these major auto manufacturers are taking that data and also selling it. And they're getting really rich information, such as like harsh braking, harsh acceleration, your windshield wipers coming on. Cell phone handling is another one, going back to the insurance app side of things, seatbelt activations. So if your alarm keeps going off, that's a data point. And they're selling it to people like me because I'm interested to know what parts of the state are not using their seatbelt as much, and then maybe I can do a targeted education campaign. But there are challenges with data. to say none the least. I mean, you have challenges, and then that one of the biggest ones is the increasing number of vendors. We have vendors in the audience. Anybody selling data? Okay, I'll be careful. Look, everybody has their own unique way of presenting data, or they may have unique data points that many others don't have. So we need the vendor community, especially, to keep pushing the envelope when it comes to data, ped bike data, and I see you guys over there, and you've heard from me enough on that one. But because of that, a local agency or a DOT may become overwhelmed. Wow, there's so much data, so many people that are selling this. Who do I go with? Who do I trust? Which approach do I take? And I'm going to answer that question with a program that I'll go over in just a minute. Another thing with it is, with that validation approaches, some people offer what I would call black box solutions. They don't really get into the details on what's happening on the back end. And there may be a reason for that, could be proprietary, I respect that, but the other side of it too, I got to understand how the data is being done, because again, I'm trying to make decisions on that, on validating and justifying projects. Impacts on national and global privacy laws, like that's not something we thought about either, but when you start getting into the whole AI discussion, I know that's another buzzword, but when you start getting into that discussion, there's a lot that goes on there. But you also get into discussion going back to where the data is coming from. And there's been plenty of lawsuits with different companies where sourcing out where that data comes from and how identifiable is it in terms of whenever the end user is able to see it. And then storing and querying data sets in general. I mean, we're talking about telematics data. We're talking about millions of data points in a given day if you're looking at a state. Where do you store that? Well, hopefully our vendor friends will help us with that, because, at least on the DOT side, I don't have all the space in the world to store that. So we need to be able to think about that. But then once you have it stored somewhere, how are you querying that data set? How are you actually using it? And is it powerful enough? Because if you don't have a powerful enough query, then it's useless in some instances when you're really trying to go on a big scale. So joint agency management. So many of you may be familiar with this organization, many of you may not. So here's your introduction to the Eastern Transportation Coalition. It used to be called the 95 Corridor Coalition, but we have expanded past 95, which that was why we got the name. It's all like if the state touched 95, that was the reason why I had the name. But we've expanded past that. And this is a pretty powerful organization when it comes to local agencies, state agencies banding together to be able to get the best out of purchasing power. This is 28 major seaports. 48% of the population lives in the states that are up on the screen. Third largest economy in the world. It's not a pushover whenever we have, the conversations of how to band together and be able to leverage the partnerships. And so as a part of this, they have a transportation data marketplace. And this is not only good for the states, it's not only good for local agencies, it's also really great for vendors as well. Because one thing that this does is it speeds up procurement of data. That is, by itself, is tremendous. No more going out and putting an RFP out, or RFI, whatever, and spending months trying to procure data. Think of this as a virtual Costco for data. So we as states, or anyone a part of the coalition, would be able to walk into this virtual store and look what's on the shelf and determine what do we like the best. And on top of that, as you'll see whenever I go into more slides, there's individuals that work at the University of Maryland through Cat Lab that help actually validate the data based on what the original contract was set up to have. And so that takes it out of the state's hands of handling that in general. And if you want to know what those validation studies look like, just go to the website. It's available for everyone to see. Now, you won't be able to see what companies are in there. They do mask that. But you will be able to see kind of generally how the industry is going when it comes to data. And what I will say is over the past 5 years, industry's getting really good in terms, especially with travel time, especially with speed, and volume is nearly there. And what I mean by that is FHWA has certain standards and things for data. Nearly all the vendors that were in the validation study were pretty much right dead on to that. And so again, very, very powerful. But here's some of the data that we do that does have, and it has some of the companies that are there as well. And there are main companies that are on this contract. And there are also what we call ancillary products, so that these main companies are able to pull in other companies that are able to offer things that are not on the list that you're seeing on the screen. So you have that travel time and speed data. Again, very important across the board on what we're looking at. Origin destination data. You also have freight data, waypoint data, volume data, and if you want to, you have conflation services. If you want to conflate speed or volumes to like your LRS, you have that option as well. And what also is provided through this is that you have a program called, or application called RIDIS. And RIDIS is actually created by the CAT Lab at the University of Maryland. And they are, so when a state purchases that data, you're not really getting the application. Old contract, you had access to applications. New contract, for the marketplace, you do not have access to those applications unless you pay more into that. But what CAT Lab has done is, okay, well, you bought all the data. Now let me just give you a program that you can put all that data into. It's a part of the package that you're paying for. So RIDIS is exactly that. Is we're able to purchase, in the state of Georgia, we purchase HERE data. And all that data, we were able to import directly into this application and get support for this application through that Eastern Transportation Coalition. What's in RIDIS, you might ask? Lots of fun things. Lots of fun things that will take up your time. Some of the things I've used most often are like congestion scans. Being able to scan a roadway, look at speeds, and determine where's your congestion at, and be able to show that in a visual form. A lot of this is being able to see something visually, but you also can get into the nitty-gritty details of the data as well. Because there is a massive data downloader up there, so if you're one of those individuals who wants to download an entire data set, put it in Excel, play around with it yourself, put it in GIS, whatever you want to do, you can still do that. But you also have the ability to do like corridor speed bends, travel time comparisons, etc. And there's also emission stuff that has been added to this as well. I had a student reach out from a high school in North Atlanta and said, hey, I got a project I'm trying to work on. Somehow he found his way to me, and I was like, great, well, what can I help you with? And he's like, well, I'm trying to do emissions. And I was like, well, that's not my area by any means, but I can try to see if I can help you. And we just pulled up this tool, ran through it together, popped up in a tutorial, and 20 minutes later, I had the data he needed, and he was able to do his project, which he got an A+ on. He followed up with me. So what have we done in the state of Georgia to better propel this data? Because it's a lot of data that we could purchase, but is it purchasing all just for GDOT? No, that's not the intent. The main intent is to get this data available to everybody, every local agency, any consultant that's working on a project for us or any local project, any university. We want everyone to have the data to be able to make the best informed decisions. So what we've actually come up with, and it's been around for a little bit now, but the GDOT ARC Joint Agency Data Acquisition and Management Program. Anyone wants to give me an acronym for that or help me want to shorten the name, I'm very much open to that, but that is the name that we have currently. Within that agency, to give you a background, within the agency, GDOT partnered with the ARC, which is the Atlanta Regional Commission, and we were tasked with 3 key things in particular. We want to enhance and standardize that data analytics for all projects, meaning that if you're working on a big project and you got a pretty healthy budget for data, great, that's awesome. You're able to do what you need to do, provide your justification, move forward. But a lot of times smaller projects didn't have that same access or that same budget for data. So it was not creating an equal view, equal opportunity for the projects. So in this case, if we buy all the data and make it available for every project has the ability to go in and look at that data and be able to use it. We also want to eliminate unnecessary duplication of data, especially associated to the analysis. There are plenty of examples I can tell you, and there's probably plenty of examples that you can tell me, where I'll give you one for us on our side. We bought data for a particular location. It was only for that project, and that data was purchased for that project and couldn't be used really anywhere else. Well, we come back 3 or 4 years later, we're like, oh, where's that data? Oh, we don't have access to it anymore. We can't use it anymore. Well, now we got to buy the data again. So one of the goals of the program was to eliminate that as well. And we wanted to lower those overall agency costs in purchasing that data, and I got a slide for you on how well the program has done for that. But what we wanted to be responsible for was developing that program charter, identifying a funding plan together, and also developing guidelines and policy recommendations for purchasing data in general. And we do. We meet every month, and we talk about what type of data that we want to purchase. This is just a timeline, showing you like a lot of this in Georgia began in 2016, really ramped up in 2019, especially with the TSMO strategic plan with the ARC, and then going into that joint agency acquisition program. And then recently we've done spec updates and best value updates as well. Organization-wise, so this is what the actual group looks like. So we have someone from GDOT as a program manager. Then on the ARC side, you have someone that would represent planning, someone that would represent performance analysis, modeling, and then on the other side is you have GDOT like planning, Office of Transportation Data, Office of Traffic Operations. We do invite local agencies. We do invite other agencies like CERTA sometimes to be able to participate. I always like to have fun with it. I think it's like King Arthur at Knights of the Round Table because we're all sitting down. We all have equal footing. Everyone has equal votes. So when we sit there and have conversations about data, there's not one person driving that conversation. We're assessing the needs across the board, and we're trying to capture the needs across the state. So what does the group have to offer? Well, fiscal year funding plan. So we go over that. We make sure we understand how much money we have to be able to purchase the data. But we also are able to coordinate with external stakeholders and internal stakeholders. What it also provides for our few vendor friends over there is an opportunity for vendors to come in and actually present on what they have to offer in front of this group. And we always leave space available for that. So any vendor that reaches out and gets access to one of us that are on the group, or they use the website email, we have 15 minutes at the beginning of each meeting that we set aside, and they can come in and they can talk to us about data. And then we can provide them feedback or point them in different directions. We manage the Eastern Transportation contracts. We update our Georgia data specs, which we do have specs on our own data in Georgia. We also look at any other type of guidelines, policy updates. We also provide training. So we've coordinated a lot with our Georgia section in providing training. And we actually did a joint training with, I think it was Louisiana and Arkansas recently. I think it was a couple years ago. But training is really big. If we're buying these tools, people should be knowing how to actually use them on a day-to-day basis. And we also do return on investment analysis, which we're currently undertaking right now. This is the type of exercises that we do. So we sit down, we brainstorm, we put pieces of paper on the wall, draw all over them, invite people to come in and tell us what data needs they have. So we come up with tables like this where we sit down with these different offices and say, what's your need and what's your want? And then that way that, again, the group can sit down and take all that, ingest all of it, and then be able to use that whenever we start having conversations of purchasing the next year's worth of data, which is really soon. We usually have those conversations December and January, maybe bleeds into February, and then we get all the contracts set up, ready to go for the new fiscal year. But we also do this stuff as well in terms of how people are using it, what programs are using it, what applications are using it. So we're able to track, because at the end of the day, we are getting funding for the program, so we want to make sure the program stays alive and that we continue buying data for everyone. So it's one of those things where it's kind of in the background and people are like, the data's there, cool, I can keep using it, and then one day if it's just shut off, then maybe there's an uproar. It's like, where did it go? So in the background, we're trying to collect and make sure we understand how people are using it. Because that also plays into, do we keep purchasing certain data sets and moving forward with them? So who can access the data? So any state government agency in the state can access the data. Any regional government, county government, city government, and any consultant or contractor working for any of the above can access the data. But any of those the ones before, they must have jurisdiction over the roadways that they're trying to get the data for. They also must be an affiliate member of the Eastern Transportation Coalition, which is really straightforward. And that membership is free because all the funding is coming out of that program. And are there limitations? Yes, of course, there's limitations. We want to make sure that this data isn't being taken and being charged from somebody else. We want to make sure that if we're providing that raw access to anyone who doesn't have any unintended consequences. You're not selling the raw data. You're not reverse engineering the raw data, or you're not using the data intentionally or unintentionally to harm anybody. I haven't really figured out how someone was going to do that quite yet, but we have it there. So if someone does it, you're out. So, but yeah, so there are limitations when it comes to that. It is award-winning. We've been really blessed in the sense that it has been picked up in terms of NOCO, the Best TSMO Award in 2024. We had the 2024 ITS Georgia Award. It's won Southern District Award. And then it also won at the 2024 ITS World Congress in Dubai. And that's the GDOT commissioner there. That's the city mayor, and that's ARC with Anna. But I asked to go. I had to at least ask, right? But they said, no, our commissioner will be there. He'll get it for you. Don't worry. And so, but that's fine. But it goes back to that building additional guidance. One thing that we want to keep on top of is that we keep providing guidance on how to use the data, making sure that it's consistency across the board. Like I said, we do have Georgia-specific specs. So what does that mean? So inside the actual contract with the University of Maryland, there are specifications that vendors are held to in terms of a really good example is latency on data. So what we did, exercise we did in Georgia, said, well, great, those are good parameters, but is there anything we want to kind of tighten the bolts on in Georgia and make a little more detailed? So we went through that exercise and actually was able to find areas that we actually did want to be a little bit more particular. So when you're working in the state of Georgia, when you're working with data, again, nothing that you all need to be worried about, but on our side, from the committee standpoint, is that we're making sure that the vendors we're working with are complying with these specifications. And going back to the benefits, I mean, it's providing that standardization, making sure we're building cost-effective projects across the board. It's uniform data analysis capabilities, regardless of those project size. Intermediate access, data for that project delivery on development, being able to enhance those capabilities for project justification, which is key. And then that consultant transparency, data transparency is awesome as well. And then you have that direct savings. And so what are those direct savings? So this is a little bit dated. Like I said, we're in the middle of actually doing our newest comparison. And from the information I've gotten so far is that we're going to be over the amount of what you see here in terms of the benefit cost ratio, but the program is strong. I mean, $3 million worth of annual savings for the program. And that's enough where I can keep getting, I've used this already to ask for more money to keep moving forward, and they've re-upped me for another 3 years on the program. So they see the benefit across the board. And like I said, as we're doing the analysis now, that number is a lot higher. All right, so if you want access to the data, and you meet all the qualifications on that, there's different ways you can go about it, or you can email that data support at dot.ga.gov. And that we would then provide you with all the details you need in order to get the DUA, in order to get access to the data, and again, all for free. So, getting into the other part of my presentation, doing fairly well on time. How is GDOT using big data to make decision making? So I just showed you why data is important. If anything, you remember the Super Bowl and the World Series, so you remember why data is important. And then how do you access data, at least from the Georgia perspective, but how are we actually using that data? So you've seen Redis in this application. Again, very powerful, porting in a lot of data into this. This is the catalog that I showed you earlier, but we also have an example for you. So I was asked back in February when federal workers were asked to come back full-time, CDC, other federal agencies in Atlanta. And the request I got was, hey, everything in 285, how's it working? Oh, okay. Let me check how it's working. And literally that was all I got, was everything in 285. And is it worse or is it better with people going back full-time on the federal side? And so that's a big ask in some instances of depending on what data you have, depending on the applications you have. So this is a temporal comparison from Redis. And so it was pretty simple. I was just able to circle 285 and put the dates in and really give it, the prompt to myself of like, did this get better or did this get worse? So you have a main data aggregator that you can download off of it. I pulled travel time was how I was going to answer the question. Pulled the travel time data, looked at the averages on any given day, looked on the weekends as well, and I was able to answer the question. And really, it was not really a noticeable difference at the time. And that was the first week, so I haven't gone back and done the analysis again. I was never asked, but again, very powerful on how you can go and actually look at this. Another big piece of it is holiday and travel analysis and advisory. Now we're getting into the holiday season, so you may see from your DOT of information that's being posted about the days of the week that you should be concerned about when traveling, etc. Where is all that data coming from? It's coming from, likely from us, it's coming from the Redis application as we're downloading and looking through that data. But we're able to come up with fun infographics to showcase like, hey, it's, Thanksgiving, you might be okay, but the day after Thanksgiving, not so great. So just be wary. We warned you, like it's gonna be a lot of traffic, that day. Major event, after action review evaluation. So anytime we have a major event on, particular on the interstate system, also can be an arterial, but we wanna know what happened and why did it happen and how did we recover from it, etc. So we were able to use that Redis data to be able to go through and look at delay costs, also looking at the hours of delay, etc. So when we can go and pull any incidents and compare them to each other if we wanted to. So in this instance, lithium batteries, truck on fire, was on fire probably for a really long time, caused a lot of delay and congestion because of that. Well, when that happens again, how do we learn from that? And if another truck full of lithium batteries gets on fire, what was the expected timeline for we're going to be having to close more than one lane or all the lanes on the interstate? So you're able to learn and grow from that as well. And then bottlenecking, so this is for our ops improvement program. So they are able to go in and actually rank all intersections across the state using this data, using delay data, congestion data. And being able to identify which locations that they should be prioritizing within that program. And also providing insight to other programs if it's something, if like an interchange or something along those lines that may be a little bit too big for the program. But this is this was so groundbreaking of a tool that they've been using this for multiple years now and been really good at identifying projects. I would say the one thing that we are really good at now, we're really good at identifying projects. We just need more money to get all the projects across the finish line. Before after studies, and this is looking at more of the signal timing perspective, but also looking at delay costs, pedestrian delay, bottlenecking, congestions. Again, just you may get asked, and I get asked more often nowadays, is what happened here? And okay, well I can write a report or have a staff member write a report, but a lot of times it's like no. Give me really high level. A picture would be awesome. And so again, Redis is really good at being able to produce pictures and being able to put a lot of information into a graphic. Here's another data source, if you're not familiar with it, but this is ATSPM. This is Automated Traffic Signal Performance Measures. This actually has been around for a while as well, but I always like to pull it up because I There's always something new with it, or there's something that maybe someone doesn't know about it. But essentially, most of our traffic signals that GDOT is responsible for owns or maintains, and there's a decent amount of local signals that are on this as well, is that you're able to go in and actually pull data directly from the traffic signal. I mean, because it's downloading every 1/10 of a second back to our database. So there's a lot of performance measures. That's a whole nother talk I can give just on ATSPM. But we actually got this from UDOT. They put this on GitHub, free-sourced it, and for us and other states to be able to use, and we've ran with it and done a lot with it. But it's a really easy way, and again, it's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect, especially when you're trying to make decisions and get things going. So if you want to Google that, it's ATSPM GDOT. UDOTs look exactly the same. I remember when we first got it, it was me and Alan Davis sitting in his office, and we're like, we're not coders by any means, but we were successful in removing the UDOT logo and putting the GDOT logo, so we packed it up after that and said we're good to go. And then these are some of the metrics that you can get from it, like left turn gap analysis, volume data, Purdue coordination diagrams, etc. And this is really big when you're getting them from the traffic signal. Retiming and fine tuning and trying to learn and understand like how effective your timing was. That type of data then can be used to be able to give you insight on how well you're doing, but also give the program insight to be able to keep justifying its needs and to grow, which is important. And it's also important when you're looking at performance tracking during major events. And in Atlanta, we're not shy to the major events that happen. National championships for college football, Super Bowls, Taylor Swift concerts, and that actually should be the barometer nowadays, is the Taylor Swift concerts, because that was a really big event that draws a lot of people in. And we have FIFA coming up, soccer fans, that's another really big event. And another Super Bowl. Congrats us. We get another Super Bowl, so we'll get ready for that one as well. But after FIFA and Taylor Swift, I think we'll be okay with the Super Bowl. So yeah, being able to, and that dashboard that you're looking at, that's a dashboard that was really intended for our executive management, because we would get calls. How's it going? Someone's telling me this isn't going well. Okay, well, let's put a dashboard together. And so hopefully this will answer a majority of your questions, because it'll continuously be updated, and then allow us to keep doing what we need to do instead of scrambling and trying to put data together to be able to tell information. We also have TDAW. This is really looking at your volumes across the state, count stations, etc. One thing special to my heart is Ashtora Safety with Numetric. This is a very, very powerful tool. If any of you were using gears back in the day, at least for the state of Georgia's perspective, you were downloading crash data from an intersection and then looking through it, determining, okay, is this good or bad, but how does it relate to the next intersection? Well, let me go to that intersection and download that Excel file, and then look, we're past all that now. You have Numetric, at least I know Tennessee has it as well. I've worked with them on that on their program, but being able to do analytics on the fly, and really I can summarize it quite simply for you. If you were to approach me and said, hey, 285, going back to 285 in Atlanta, tell me all the crashes associated with red trucks between 410 and 510, only on Tuesdays, only in the months of January, March, and maybe May, that get into a crash with a yellow truck. Okay, if you're doing that back in the day, I'm like, I'll see you in a month, I'll get that done. But nowadays, there's a couple of filters and you're done within a couple of minutes. And you're able to do stuff like this, where you're able to rank corridors based on crash severity, based on rates, and being able to build projects off of that. And this is a pet project of mine, and this is just showcasing other ways that you can answer questions to the public. This is a project that I'm working on Tybee Island, and working with the community. You would think, for most of the year, based on talking with some of the community, that they have the worst traffic in the world. And put that into any other scenario that you're working with anybody else with the community. But being able then to go back and actually showcase, well, really, it's about 5% of the time in the given year that you really have a traffic problem. But again, being able to use data on that stance, and then you have the pleasure of going to the public and showing the data, and then being told that it doesn't make sense to them and they don't believe it. So there's still challenges even when you have the data. But this showcases, like all the days in terms of travel time fit within that 15 minutes. And these are very telling graphics, being able to look at that. We also have a new program called Alternative Design. This is going to be brand new, coming out of New Metric. This is, we're actually edging out Wisconsin on this, so I'm pretty happy. But what this does is it takes the highway safety manual, it takes the predictive analysis section and simplifies it. So I don't know how many of you have worked in the predictive analysis in the HSM, but it's not the easiest thing in the world, going through that and trying to understand how to use it. And then, are you applying it correctly across the board? But you will have an application now, at least in Georgia, where you can go in and actually put in parameters. A lot of it could be auto-populated, but it will give you predictive crash rates for 20 years out, 1 year out, doesn't matter. But it's gonna help people make decisions on what things to do within projects outside of a core SME safety group. So you have planners, you have designers that are gonna be empowered to be able to make decisions on this side. And this is crash data. I honestly don't know why this slide's here, but this is youth crash data. I remember why I put it in. So safety education is a big piece of it as well. So being able to use data to be able to make decisions on what demographic groups that you should be targeting and looking at when it comes to crash data. So this is Georgia data, but this is showcasing that teens disproportionately are getting into more serious and fatal injury crashes. I think like 8% of our population would be driving age teens in Georgia, but yet they account for 10% of our fatalities. So again, disproportionate. So we want to be able to do stuff to help out and use data to make those decisions, so we can do things like this where we can actually go to schools and use data. All those points on the map right there are really data-informed decisions of what schools we need to be going to or what regions we need to be going to have conversations with the students. And that's, we have healthcare professionals that are there. We have crash survivors that come in and talk. And that's Alpharetta High School. That's 1,000+ students that we as a DOT are walking onto the middle of that court and having a conversation with. And we're there for a reason. So that's big. This is ITERA's Clear Guide. This is looking at speed data. So this is actually outside of RITIS, is using the same data, but is using the ITERA's platform to be able to do that. One thing that I love about this is that you can start working with enforcement and doing coordination. And those are conversations that we have started up with our Georgia State Patrol, being able to rank corridors based on the percentage of people going 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. And that's what ITERA's, that tool, was able to provide us. And then coordinate with law enforcement because they don't have enough resources to be everywhere. And there's plenty of people speeding, but let's figure out where the locations that people are speeding a lot, or a large percentage of people are speeding, and let's try to drive those numbers down. And then use all that data and combine it together. So you have congestion scans here, you have crash data here. There's a lot of data that's being parsed into this, but it goes back to that bite size, how to make decisions off of data. Near miss detection, some of you may be familiar with this, but this is using video to be able to look at like post-encroachment time where you don't have crash data to be able to support justification needs. And then you're able to use like data like we're using Replica and the Michelin data that I was talking about earlier with the telematics to build out Georgia's first rural active transportation plan. And again, this is its own presentation set aside by itself, but know that that bike ped data that I made the comment earlier, there's not a lot of it out there. But when you get into the telematics data, you're able to start leveraging that data to make decisions on building out networks for active transportation users. And this is what some of that data looks like, speeding, the phone handling that I mentioned earlier above. Using data to be able to build out curb projects. So BBI, ball bank indicator. Many of you maybe haven't heard of that in a long time, but yeah, that's data. That's a data set, and we're leveraging that data set to then go in and systemically build out curb projects through the state of Georgia and identify the risk factors associated with that. And newest to this soon is this NERA data set, where it actually is taking the rotations from a tire sensor and being able to then tell you about friction values on your roadway. And so, okay, well, don't even need to go collect all that BBI data anymore. I've already done it, but you have these new emerging data sets coming onto the scene that allow you to be able to, again, may not be perfect, but it's going to get you a good amount of the way there in order to help you start making decisions on how to move forward. GeoTab is another data set that we have, and it's mainly pertaining to freight, especially OD with freight. And our planning group and ARC group leverage this data to be able to build freight plans. And going back to that insurance app base, GDOT dabbled in it a little bit. This is something we just closed out, but we actually partnered with an organization that built out an app for us where we had people download the app and they would monitor like harsh braking, harsh acceleration, etc. And we partnered with the Atlanta Braves and said, hey, the higher your score is, that 94 up there, then the chance you have to win to go to a Braves game or Braves shirt or whatever the case may be. And what was telling through this, we had okay amount of people sign up for it. But what was really telling is the people that actually signed up for it, we did see noticeable drops in their driver behavior over time, which was really important because safety, it's not a silver bullet in anything. So being able to see that was particularly important. And then road weather, weather data, okay, that's equally important, especially here in the South. We want to make sure that we're preparing, for like snow, because a decent amount of our population doesn't know how to drive in it. So we want to make sure that we brine those roads ahead of time and be able to get that information out to all of our partners, like the districts, etc. And be able to get really good information, again, to make those decisions. So again, those three takeaways, hopefully transportation data-wise is important. Hopefully you walked in, you knew that, but hopefully you walk away if you didn't. What applications are available to help justify decisions, so you got a good taste of what applications are available. And for us, it's free access to that data. So that will conclude my presentation. Pretty much on time, but I guess we have a minute or two for questions, and if we don't, I'll just stand here and you can come ask me questions afterward, but thank you all.
No questions?
Sam.
Yes, sir. Oh, goodness. Oh, man.
With big data like that, and I know you're saying it's not perfect, one of the things that I've always kind of had in my back of my head is always challenge the output from black boxes. But with big, how do you correlate that to what level of confidence you have in the data sets, or the data sets? Is somebody providing that confidence interval to you?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the coalition that we purchased the data from. Technically, that's our procurement avenue. They have a team dedicated to validating the data that comes through, and they do validation studies every year. So they go jump state to state to state within the coalition, and they test everyone out comparatively to what is required upon those vendors within the master contract. And so when they do that, they're then able to go back to coalition members and say, hey, we've tested out all this data. Here's a couple that are not quite on where they need to be. Here's the rest of them. They're completely fine. I think the difficult part on that is when you start getting into the data that is more of the ancillary products that I like to call like the Wild West of data, because people are just coming up with something every day that they're trying out and trying to do. That's when it gets difficult. Because then that's when you engage in the conversation with the vendor and you say, hey, show me how you calculate this. And a lot of times, especially with the location-based services data, at least the conversations I had, is like, I can't show you that. Because as an organization, we can't provide identifying information. But I think as data is evolving, they're able to share a little bit more and get more comfortable sharing. But it is a really, really tough whenever you don't have confidence in the data, because you can't make justification off of that. So really, in summary, is like, hopefully with a lot of the mature data sets we have, the confidence is there and we're validating that. With newer data sets, we hope that we arrive on the scene. And one area that I think we're really breaking through on that is the ped bike data. I think that there's an immense need for that. And I think the vendor world is really understanding that now, especially the push from the coalition, where we actually have a subgroup now called Capable. You can go onto the coalition's website. We've already actually produced one report But we're in the middle of our second report, and in that side of the report, we're doing some of the guidelines for how you would even validate that data. And then I think then the vendor world would be like, oh, that's how they're looking at this data. This is the answers they need to these questions. We can help try to provide that. So, but it's a really great question. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and take about a 10-minute break. So we have some snacks again, provided by Quality Counts out to the left when you go out the doors. And we'll start back in about 10 minutes or so. And the aquarium tickets are also on the table out front as well.